Welcome to Delingpole, a Breitbart.com podcast. Here is the podcast host, James Delingpole.
Welcome to the Delingpole podcast with me, James Delingpole, and my very special and exciting guest. He is literally my favourite theatre critic. He writes for the Spectator. His name is Lloyd Evans. Actually, you've got an even longer name than that, haven't you? You've got a proper Welsh name.
Yeah, my full name is David Lloyd Evans, but there's a Welsh tradition whereby you give the child three names and then choose the middle one. It's the same actually in Scotland. Gordon Brown's name is John Gordon Brown. Little known fact.
I didn't know that.
It's very confusing for when you're doing your bank details, because it's very difficult to convince the bank that you have two different names. So it's a slight inconvenience.
So that's another example of the oppression against the Welsh.
That's right. Yes, of course the Welsh are, very much an oppressed nation. It's the case that 1/3 of the world was once the possession of the English, apart from England. England was once the possession of the Welsh. We got kicked out. Well, first of all, we allowed the Romans in for 4 centuries, and we allowed them to build some roads and things, and some amphitheatres and some nice palaces. And then after the Romans left, we got invaded by ABBA, basically. ABBA turned up from Scandinavia and Denmark, and they booted us out. And that sort of rankles with us a bit. We got sort of banished to the western fringes.
So you're saying that before the Romans arrive, there were the Welsh people in kind of Essex and things like that?
Yeah, that's right. The Celtic, they're called the Celts, but it's the same word. And the word Welsh is actually an English word meaning foreigner. And the Welsh call themselves Cymraeg. And, of course, the country that they inhabit is called Cymru. And so this word is an invention of the English. The English came over here and called us foreigners. which is somewhat. So
Boudica was Welsh.
Well, Boudica was a Celt, yes.
Yeah.
And so that name was Latinised into Boadicea.
And so you Celts were kind of what, dark and misshapen? Were you? What do you look like?
Yeah, probably like the sort of stereotypical Welshman. Short and stout and squat with dark hair. Ideal for mining. Unfortunately, my father was 6'1" with blonde hair and sandy eyes. Oh, right. So he wasn't a typical Welshman at all.
But I imagine you sound posh Welsh.
Because I was raised in the home counties, but my dad was from Llanelli, so he had a pretty strong Welsh accent, same town as Michael Howard. My mother was from Ireland, so I'm completely non-English. And
you were talking, actually, making a fascinating point before we turned on the recording device, where you were telling me that you were on a quest for reparations from the damages done to your forefathers by the Italians.
Yeah, by the Italians, that's right. Well, I'm taking a leaf out of the book of some Caribbean nations which are applying to the British for reparations for slavery. I think we need to go in chronological order here. And the Romans came here and enslaved the Welsh people, the Celts, long before the British people went to the Caribbean. My ancestors were shipped over to Rome as slaves and forced to build certain Roman antiquities. And Italy today still benefits from those antiquities because over 60 million tourists visit Italy every year, and high on their list of priorities is a chance to look at these antiquities, some of which were built by Welsh people. And some of those Welsh people would have been my ancestors. Therefore, I would like to apply to the Italian government for reparations, and I want a lot.
I feel your pain, Lloyd, but I see a wrinkle in your plan. Have you had a look at the Italian economy recently?
Yes, I know there is that. Out of pity, I would not actually want to, wouldn't want to pursue it. Also, out of decency, it's ridiculous to ask one government to fleece its own taxpayers in order to pay money to another government, because this would be a government-to-government payment. No individual would end up receiving any money. And also, it's a ghost story. Pretending that my ancestors suffered some wrong at the hands of somebody else's ancestors is nonsense. It's not justice. And the wider point really is people in the Caribbean who are being held in sort of a state of hopeful expectation of hundreds of billions of pounds, which will probably never come.
Also, when you think about it, we are all descended from both the oppressed and oppressors. Who's the English king from whom we're all... If you're British, basically you're all descended from Edward III, I think it is.
Probably,
something
yes.
like that. I mean,
Yeah.
if you go far enough back, and in the same way, almost everyone has got Genghis Khan genes
Yes.
in them, I think.
Yes, I think they have. And the Queen is descended from the Prophet Muhammad via some ancestor who was the Duke of Cordoba or something.
Yeah.
So, yes, we're all
So
interrelated.
reparations are totally loose. By the way, I got very excited when you mentioned Rome, 'cause I've just come back from Rome, and I'm full of the joys of the eternal city, as I
Yes.
believe it's known. And what a fine place it is, despite the fact that it is going to hell in a handcart. I mean, the municipal authorities are completely inadequate to the task of clearing up the streets, and buses catch fire and explode, and the building, the Trevi Fountain. I went. Have you ever
Yes,
been
I
to
have. I have.
the Trevi Fountain, which I thought was going to be absolute kind of tourist tack, completely shit, and lots of people in front of it. So it is a bit like The Walking Dead in places, Rome. But nevertheless, the fountain itself is magnificent. I mean, it's really it's kitsch, but it's beautiful.
Yeah.
The water is clean. Do you know why?
Why?
Private enterprise.
Oh, really?
Fendi, the Italian fashion company, Fendi paid I don't know how many million euros to get the whole thing cleaned up.
Right.
And as a quid pro quo, to use a sort of Roman phrase, they got to stage a fashion show there, which I think would probably have been worth at least as much as they spent on cleaning up the fountain. So it's a win-win situation. Just down the road, if you go to the Pantheon, the Pantheon is still covered in Roman grime. It's still all black. Why will it never be cleaned up?
Because it's in the hands of the city authorities.
No, it's in the hands of the Church.
Oh, right.
Of the Vatican,
Right.
which makes, sorry, but I'm about to end my guided tour of Rome, which makes $70 million, no, actually more than that, probably $90 million a year from entrance to the Vatican museums.
Right.
25,000 people a day go through the Sistine Chapel alone.
Right.
Can you imagine how much damage that does to all that
bet.
breath does
Yes,
to the
yes.
Michelangelos?
Yeah. Did you go?
Yeah,
You
I
did?
did. I booked the Cheaty tour, the Smug tour, where you get there at 7:20,
Right.
and they lead you. It takes all that time to pass security and get to the Sistine Chapel. You're there at 8 o'clock, and so there are only about maybe 50 of you, as opposed to probably about 200 or 300 if you go with the fish and chip mob.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
I should mention to our dear special listening friend, as you know, there's only one person who listens to this podcast, and they're very, very special indeed. And I should explain how it is I know you. You belong to a kind of a special golden generation within the golden generation of my time at Oxford. You were at Balliol. Do you know how I met you, Lloyd?
I think probably at a chapsock.
It may have been at Chapsock, but I have a recollection. A bit like, have you ever read Le Grand Monde by Alain Fournier?
I'm afraid I haven't.
Okay. It's a class. Every Frenchman's read this work. It's a book about love and yearning and nostalgia for things that we can never recapture and so on. It's a magnificent work of literature. Anyway, the hero, Le Grand Monde, wanders one day and finds himself at this enchanted castle. It's real, and he meets this beautiful girl that anyway he ends up marrying. In the same way, I wandered one night, pissed out of my brain, out of Christchurch, and found myself for some reason, I think, within the environs of Balliol, your college, and I sort of was befriended by a bunch of weirdos. I mean, you were a bunch of weirdos in your year,
yeah,
but
maybe we
all
were, yes.
likeable weirdos. There was you, there was Aidan Hartley, the wildlife correspondent of the Spectator, now has a farm in Africa.
Yes.
There was
Robert Twigger,
the explorer. And author of many fantastic books.
Yeah. Justin Rushbrook, the distinguished barrister.
The QC who recently won lots of money for Cliff Richard, the recording artiste, and the star of Yesteryear.
Who's not known in America, but
very
well known here.
Yeah, very known. No, who else was... I mean, quite
Jeff Lee, the documentary maker and novelist.
An author who was going to appear on the podcast. I mean, I don't think there's any other college which would have produced quite so many contenders for podcast guests. And yet, Balliol is a shit lefty college.
Yes.
I mean, if you went there now, I imagine everyone at Balliol now, probably, maybe there's one person listening to this podcast who disagrees with that, and I'm sorry, but almost everyone at Balliol sucks, I imagine. They're going to have got in on the basis that they fit into the rights-deprived socio-economic group and stuff, and probably dozens of Etonians who would have been really good to get into much cleverer, much better educated, who would have been made a much better fist of 3 years at Oxford, but instead they'll give it to a bunch of lefties who want to destroy the whole city and replace Balliol probably with red brick buildings and where you study Derrida and...
Yes, and I think there's a controversy about Lord Curzon, who was the Viceroy of India. He was a Balliol man, and I think one of his portraits has been put into a less conspicuous position.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. Oxford, can we have a brief whinge about this? Oxford is really shit now, isn't it?
I haven't been back there for a long time.
Take it from me, Lloydie, you would hate the place.
Really?
It's
right.
Absolutely. It's like Helm's Deep would be after the Orcs have taken over. The Orcs are now running the whole show.
Right.
It's really ghastly. You wouldn't get kind of agreeable chaps like us there anymore.
Really? We'd have to go to Durham or to St Andrews or Bristol or perhaps somewhere like that.
Yes. I don't know how safe the other the only university I know which is definitely safe is Durham. I go there all the time. Well, I say all the time. I mean, probably 2 or 3 times a year, and they are very sound, and it's got that collegiate atmosphere, and it's a civilized place. And I think probably when you do the courses, you're not just doing kind of postmodernism and Marxism studies, you're actually doing something maybe worthwhile. Don't know about Bristol yet, don't know about St Andrews. I'm planning a kind of tour of these places.
The hate tour.
The love tour. The love tour.
I'm talking about the kind of sentiments that you will be greeted with.
The weird thing is, Lloydie, that I can call you Lloydie, can't
yes,
I?
I like it. I like people who call me Lloydie. Only 3 people in my life who call me Lloydie.
Really?
My mum, a girl called Cynthia Hamilton, and you.
Oh, that's really sweet. And is Cynthia Hamilton nice?
Yeah, she's lovely. Yes.
Oh, great. She sounds nice. Yeah, I have this weird experience, particularly as a result of the podcast, which is that I get accosted in the streets now by mega fans. Sorry, the only listener, the special friend listens, who takes many forms. The special listening friend accosts me in the street.
Right.
And when I was, just one more Rome anecdote, when I was wandering through, have you've been there?
I have, yes.
Okay, so there's this hill of ruins, isn't there? Is it the Aventine or the Palatine? I forget. Maybe they both got ruins.
Yeah, I was only there briefly some time ago.
By the Colosseum, anyway. I think it's the Palatine Hill. And you go and wander amid these ruins, and you really haven't a clue what they are. You just pillars and rubble and stuff, and you kind of guess what might have happened there pretty badly. And what you end up doing is latching. You see a tour guide, and you sort of latch onto his tour, and you think, is he gonna notice that I'm not on his tour? And so we were hovering a bit, and then you sort of you realise after a time that this is a bit indecent of leeching off somebody else's tour, so you wander on. Anyway, a bit later on that afternoon, I got this DM on my Twitter, and this chap said, "I spotted you in the forum earlier today. I'm your biggest fan. Please, let's meet up later, and I will give you a free tour of Rome."
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is and he was great, by the way.
You're being stalked by tour guides wherever you go.
And he said, "Do you get recognised often?" And I said, "Well, I tell you what freaks me about being recognised by fans like you, Anton, is that there must be lots and lots of enemies out there who spot me as well and clock me." And I said, "So far they haven't attacked, but you just don't know." But anyway, it is very, very gratifying when my special friends accost me in the street and offer me free tours of Rome.
Yes. I mean, I'm intrigued by your tour of universities. You've come up against some hostility at universities, and I have a measure of sympathy with students today, and they're different from the students that we were, because they're paying for it. And we weren't. We were very privileged to join a marvellous institution, and we felt that we were taking part in this great historic quest to find the truth and to take part in this contest of ideas. But today's students I think they have some right to want to claim a safe space. They want to get away from the hell that is Twitter and the internet. And so I have a measure of sympathy with them for wanting that.
Do you think that the fact that we had a free education made us more appreciative of the idea of university as a kind of a formative intellectual experience, as opposed to a kind of a way to get the credentials to get a job? Do you think we appreciated university more and used it better?
I think we might have used it worse, actually.
Really?
I mean, I was because it was free. I felt I could study anything, so I studied classics, which is not a particularly marketable. It doesn't give you any marketable skills except to become a classics master.
Come on. Grades. Everyone wants to do grades.
Yeah, I know. That's right. It was great. It was literally great.
And were you good?
I wasn't that good. No, I didn't. I was sort of. You were sort of encouraged to do other things while you were there. I mean, I remember having a formal chat at the end of each term. You had a formal chat with the master of college. It was called handshaking, and if the encounter ended with a handshake, that meant you were being sent down or expelled. So it was one of these quirky Oxford conventions whereby the thing is given the name which is the thing it isn't. And I told him that I was involved in making a film, and he suddenly lit up. He was absolutely enthusiastic. He was really. He said, "What's it about? Where are you filming it? Who's in it? You know, who wrote it?"
Did it involve donkeys?
It didn't involve donkeys, no.
Right.
And he was much more interested in that than hearing my philosophy lecturer give an account of my inability to write essays about ontology. Yeah, we were encouraged to regard it as a sort of marvellous place where we could pursue intellectual dreams, like a sabbatical.
Is that not the point?
It is the point. It is the point. Yes.
Very much the point. I think not. The point is not trying to undermine the fabric and traditions of the university in the form of kind of vacuous protests like Rhodes Must Fall or whatever.
Yeah.
Or this new obsession that they have on the arts degrees of decolonizing the curriculum.
Yeah.
So replacing dead white males that you've heard of and have a body of literature that's been recognised over time with probably people from an ethnic background, probably women as well, who've done absolutely sod all but have been put on the list because, hey, they've been allegedly neglected.
Yes.
Which is a bit sad.
It is a bit sad if that's happening, and I suspect it is happening. I mean, I saw an interesting play just over a year ago at the Edinburgh Festival.
Yeah.
About this Rhodes Must Fall business in South Africa, and the students who were attempting to destroy this statue, which is just a piece of metal, really, they spent hundreds and hundreds, thousands of man hours in organising the protests and lobbying to have this thing removed. Not one single second of that time was really spent redistributing wealth or opportunity among their community, which is the ultimate object of it. So if the oppressive powers, if the white supremacists had wanted to devise a scheme to neutralise dissent, the statue and the protest against the statue would have been a perfect scheme, because so much time was wasted on it. And it was a very astute play, because as soon as the statue was destroyed, the students turned on each other and they started accusing each other of being sexist and of being homophobic and things like that. And so they were just an angry bunch.
It sounds quite a sort of a radical play.
Yeah, but it wasn't. All these conclusions I'm drawing were unintended.
Oh, I see.
It was trying to say, yes, this is absolutely right, that we should be knocking down this symbol, you know, which is in the end just a symbol.
Right. Well, I want to talk about plays in the next section, actually. So we're going to have a break here. You're listening to the Delingpole podcast with me, James Delingpole, and my very special guest, Lloyd Evans, theatre critic, Balliol graduate, and Welshman.
Playwright.
Oh yeah, playwright. Yeah. Okay.
Breitbart News Daily with Alex Marlowe.
Why did we see some of the Republican kissing of Mark Zuckerberg that was taking place?
I called it kissing the ring, because I felt like every single person practically had to kiss the ring of this guy, you know, who wants to do nothing except get all those people out of office. So, you know, bizarre behavior from the Republicans.
Breitbart News Daily, weekdays at 6 a.m. Eastern on SiriusXM Patriot 125.
This is Delingpole, a Breitbart.com podcast. Here once again is James Delingpole.
Welcome back to the Delingpole podcast with me, James Delingpole, and my very special guest, Lloyd Evans. Lloyd, before we go on to your marvellous career as a theatre critic, you wanted to pull me up on a mistake I'd made. You and I both appeared a few years back in a legendary TV documentary.
I think it was legendary, yes.
Called When Boris Met Dave.
Yes.
Now, just tell the special listening friend why we were in this documentary.
Well, it was quite a daring documentary. It was broadcast on the eve of the general election, which David Cameron was expected to win. And it's very audacious of a broadcaster like Channel 4 to make a hostile documentary about an incoming Prime Minister. I mean, that's quite reckless. And they were very concerned that everything that we said about him was authentic. And so they had to find people who actually were at Oxford with these two guys, with David Cameron and his great opponent, Boris Johnson. As it happened, I was at the same college, studying the same subject as Boris Johnson. And my chief collaborator, Toby Young, was at the same college as David Cameron, studying the same subject as him.
And I wasn't in either of those colleges, but I knew both of them.
Yes, you did. And I concealed from the broadcasters the fact that not only had I never met David Cameron in my life, I hadn't even heard of him at Oxford.
Really?
Yeah. I'd never heard of him.
That is quite fun. But he wasn't at Balliol. So
he wasn't at Balliol, no. And he was a couple of years below me. And also there are 12,000 people there. And,
were you in the same... Did you ever share tutorials with Boris?
He was a year below me.
Oh, right. So you looked down on him.
I looked down on him.
I mean, did you know him at all?
I knew him a bit because he was living right next door to Justin Rushbrook, who Justin Rushbrook spotted Boris's potential, and they became allies and friends and still are.
Right. I mean, I like Boris very much, but he's quite opaque. I mean, he's quite bluff. There's a sort of carapace, a very thick carapace that you don't really know what the sort of person is like underneath.
Yes, he's performing all the time.
Yeah,
performing, and what he likes doing is getting into trouble, and then he likes watching himself get out of trouble. And
it's interesting.
I've seen him do this at a book launch that he had a book out about 10 years ago called Friends, Voters, Countrymen. In his speech about the book to the publishers, he kept on using this phrase mega biblion, mega kakon, which is Greek for a big book is a big evil, or to be more accurate, a big book is a big load of cack.
So making an excuse for writing a short book.
Yes, exactly, yes. And he was sort of teasing them a bit, but teasing them in ancient Greek,
right.
and sort of enjoying himself. He was doing it purely for his own amusement. And I think that's a side to him. He sees life as just a big game, a big adventure playground for him.
So you mean, were he Prime Minister, he might start a war on a whim in order to see how he can get out of it?
He might even go that far. Yes, he might. I think he seems to have detached himself from his ambitions in the last few months. But you never know.
Well, I'd be very happy with him as Prime Minister.
Yeah, so would I. I think he'd enjoy it. I like Prime Ministers who enjoy being Prime Minister. That's why I hated John Major. John Major found it all a terrible, nuisance. And sometimes Mrs. Thatcher gave that impression as well. She gave the impression that she was this embattled figure surrounded by these hopeless civil servants and unionists who were trying to destroy her. That's why I like Tony Blair. Blair liked power, and power suited him. And of course, until the disaster of the Iraq War, he gave the impression of somebody who was really enjoying it. And that's good. That's heartening.
Yes, but he enjoyed it. Meanwhile, he was screwing up the country for generations, and in a way, setting the seeds for Corbyn.
Well, he was privatising the NHS, which is something you shouldn't really do. And people now believe that this programme of privatisation was initiated by the Conservative Party, but actually the Conservatives have been very good at preserving the NHS.
He certainly set up these financial arrangements, these PFI contracts, which were a terrible imposition on the taxpayer, let's say, and on future generations.
Yes, they were very long-term contracts as well. They were 20 or 30-year contracts, which are still in place and are still rewarding shareholders.
It's extraordinary. I'm a great believer in free markets and in shares and stuff, but it's when the government finds itself in negotiations with hard-headed businesses. It's always the hard-headed businesses which get the better of the deal, and the taxpayer is shaft. Yes. Politicians are not very good at that kind of stuff, are they?
They're hopeless.
Nor civil servants, it seems to me.
No, and they're particularly bad at computer technology. Every time there's a new department commissions some new tech, it costs billions and doesn't work.
Do you know, we hadn't even got onto the anecdote that I mentioned at the beginning about how when I came up to Oxford in my first term, I think there was the main university magazine, wasn't there? Was Charwell, and then there was a satirical magazine. ISIS.
Unfortunately, named ISIS. Yes, named after another tributary of the Thames.
And then there was the one that you worked on called
Tributary,
which was much more sort of gossipy.
Yes, gossipy, and it was. One thing we hadn't realised is it's very difficult to write gossip about people when nobody has a job, nobody has any official responsibilities, nobody is married, nobody has any children, nobody can really commit any transgressions. So we were sort of always looking for something to write about, and so we decided that we would have a category called Pushy Fresher. And we decided that James Delingpole, with his sort of friendly, outgoing, effusive manner, was ideal to be the pushy fresher.
I was so pleased when I made it.
And I wrote this line. James Delingpole comes up to me at a party with a glass of wine in one hand and a glass of wine in the other, which James has all his life believed was written by Toby Young, whereas in fact it was written by me. And I'd like to claim the credit for it now.
Yeah, well, the credit is all yours, Lloyd, and history will note that
future scholarship will be great.
Future scholarship, exactly, because you don't want Toby Young being credited for any more
than he already is. Yes, yes,
exactly. How friendly with you were you with Tobes, by the way?
I was reasonably friendly with him, not as much as he was very friendly with Aidan Hartley. He really looked up to Aidan Hartley as kind of Tarzan. He thought he was a superhuman figure.
Well, Aidan is of all of us. No, well, actually, Twigger and Hartley are both proper men. They do manly things. I mean, they would not be out of place in King Solomon's Mines.
No, that's
in the Stuart Granger. Younger listeners, that's an actor from a very long time ago. Yeah. By the way, Toby was on the podcast about 3 or 4 podcasts ago.
Yeah.
I think it's a mistake for Toby to try and suck up or become part of the establishment. Do you not think?
I think he's rather blown it now over this.
Well, he
this
has, but
controversy.
what I'm saying is that he should never have tried. You cannot. If you're a journalist, you are an outsider. You're an outcast, aren't you? You're outside the tent, pissing in.
Yes.
And you can't really go into that urine-filled tent and expect to thrive.
No, I suppose not. I mean, I think he really got the bug with this the free school endeavour that he got involved in, which is great. And so he set up this amazing network of free schools, which were all doing extremely well. And then he got appointed to some government quango, or non-government quango, and then it surfaced that he'd said that somebody had Baywatch tits. And
that's a fantastic phrase.
I know. I think that was about his wife, talking about his wife, and surely that's a matter between him and his wife, isn't it?
You'd have thought.
You'd have thought.
Yeah. No, I think he was found guilty of the crime of writing entertaining copy in his career as a journalist. I mean, we're all guilty, aren't we? If that's the bar is that low.
Well, for most of that career, he specialised in making enemies, and he called his autobiography "How to Lose Friends and Alienate People" because that was his shtick, that was his persona. I'm the guy you want to hate.
I had a long period where I wouldn't speak to Toby. For about 5 years, I would not speak to him because he is the scorpion on the back of the frog. He does sting you. Well, he used to anyway. It was his shtick.
Yes.
Yeah, but you landed the job of Spectator critic, theatre critic on the Spectator, which you've been doing for how long? Quite a while.
Quite a while, yeah, about 15 years actually. Yes.
Yeah, and you are really good. I mean, if you diss a play, diss a production, I tend to think it's not worth going to see. And if you rave about something, I want to go. But a lot of I could never be a theatre critic because so much of the stuff you see is absolute dross, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I see about 100 plays a year, and if I see 4 good ones, that's quite a lot. That's a high ratio. A lot of plays are all right, and that's very annoying. It's difficult to write about something that's all right. Yeah. So I tend to kind of go in strong, either one way or the other.
Yeah.
I don't like writing blandly about something. But it's if I see a decent play every 3 or 4 months, that's not a bad ratio.
So, for those who are visiting London or go to the theatre a lot, what are your 4 must-sees of the last 3 or 4 months or 6 months?
There's a very good play on Hampstead at the moment called I and You, which is a teenage romance with a fantastic twist. I won't give it away, but it's the best finale to a play I've ever seen, and it's a very, very funny play about a couple of slightly ditzy teenagers having a romance in their bedroom. It's called I and You, and it's really good.
So that's going to transfer to the West End, probably.
One would hope so. Yes, yes.
Okay.
I mean, it does help if you have stars in it. Actually, sorry, I forgot the woman in it is a star. She's in Game of Thrones, I think. I never watched. Yes, I never watched TV, so I don't. I only watch Newsnight.
Do you know what character she plays in Game of Thrones?
No, I'm afraid I don't.
Okay, well, people can look it up on the internet, can't they?
There's a very, very funny camp play called Everybody's Talking About Jamie, which opened a year ago, and is still running, and is now booking for another 6 months or 12 months, and it originated in Sheffield, and it's actually based on a TV documentary about a boy who wanted to wear a frock to his school prom. Some of those terms are a bit unfamiliar. Even as I'm saying them, I'm thinking, what am I talking about? School prom? We didn't have school proms when I was a
We've adopted loads of American stuff
since
we were young. Yeah, exactly. This whole Halloween is just crazy.
Yeah. So that's good. Everybody's talking about Jamie is great, and I and You is great, and of course School of Rock is the best musical I've ever seen, and I love. I'm a great fan of Andrew Lloyd Webber, especially the early ones, Jesus Christ Superstar and Joseph I Loved, and School of Rock is fantastic. And the book was written by Julian Fellows. Now, you wouldn't have thought it, but Julian Fellows went to see the Beatles and the Rolling Stones live in the early 60s. Julian Fellows.
That is extraordinary. Apparently the Beatles live were just pretty awful unless you caught them in the very earliest days in sort of Hamburg or wherever, because all you could hear were girls screaming.
Yes, I think a lot of these people did see them in the early days, and they were playing in places like Ruislip. And Janet Street Porter, who's a celebrated broadcaster in this country, saw the Rolling Stones and the Beatles on consecutive evenings in 1962.
She didn't.
You know, she did. Yes.
That is. I don't think you could really beat that.
I know,
claim
it's amazing
in rock and roll terms.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed, and I wonder whether I live not too far from the Royal Shakespeare Company in Stratford, and I have seen some brilliant productions there. The Richard II with Doctor Who with David Tennant.
Yeah, he's very good. Yeah, he's great.
Blew me away. It's almost my favourite Shakespeare play, and this was an immaculate production.
Yeah,
but so many of the productions at the RSC, you sense that their need for diversity casting has trumped the need for artistic excellence.
Yes.
They seem to have forgotten that their purpose as the Royal Shakespeare Company is to show Shakespeare at his best, and instead it's kind of Buggins' turn for sort of to rectify social inequalities.
Yes, I know, and unfortunately, the people who have to pay the price for that are the audience, particularly the first-time audience. If you go and see a Shakespeare play and you're not familiar with it, and it's often very tangled, very complicated family relationships, and if you have cross-dressing or transgender casting or wrong gender casting, it's extremely confusing. I went to see Gandalf in McKellen in King Lear about 6 months ago, and King Lear, the opening scene of King Lear is extraordinarily efficient dramatically, because the power play is being conducted on a family level and on a state level. So the family is effectively the cabinet, and King Lear is abdicating and handing out the departments of state to his own members of his own family. But it's crucial that you understand the family relationships. And he has two daughters, and then his third daughter was played by a black woman who clearly obviously wasn't his natural daughter. So a first-timer would imagine that she was an adopted daughter,
yes,
and that was the cause of the beef between Cordelia and the other two sisters. Meanwhile, Kent, a hugely important figure in the play, was played by a woman, and it was natural to assume, even having seen the play 10 times, I thought, hang on, has King Lear got a wife suddenly? She was playing the counsellor to Lear, and she seemed like either his sister or his wife, and a first-timer would assume that she was the wife or the sister, or a cousin or something, and it was really confusing. And it's so unfair on the new arrivals, the people who haven't seen Shakespeare before, to see it done badly like that.
It's unfair on Shakespeare. It's unfair on punters who are paying. They're not cheap tickets for the RSC.
No, I bet they aren't.
I mean, yes, he says a man who never paid for a theatre ticket in his life. I think for decent seats, you're probably paying 30 quid, 35 quid per. And you do want to be in the decent seat, and that's it. I've sat in the upstairs bit, and it's pretty miserable.
Well, I mean, that's half what you pay in the West End, or less than half, actually.
Really?
Well, I went to see Aladdin, and they were great. Aladdin's very good, by the way. I went with my son, and I looked at the cost of the seats. They were £132 each. to see Aladdin. I mean, that's a family holiday, isn't it?
I really hate to say this, but I do want to go and see Alexander Hamilton.
Yeah.
I haven't. I mean,
It's good.
I've been hearing the tunes.
Yeah.
My daughter has been listening to them and says,
Right.
"Dad, we've got to go and see
Yes,
this."
it's hypnotic. It's hypnotic. Once you've seen it, I'm starting to think it now. I'm starting to
Alexander
move
Hamilton.
up and down. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
It's
it
very
scans
good,
quite
yes.
well, doesn't it? Just
It's
sort of-
also really interesting constitutionally and historically. I mean, it's not the kind of subject matter you'd think for a musical. It's covering ground such as how America allowed itself to declare war on other nations and the precise constitutional arrangements that were made to enable that to happen. I mean, it's very abstruse sort of stuff. You know, it's Vernon Bogdanor sort of stuff.
Yes, quite. Sort of, well, you can fashion musicals out of the most extraordinary things, can't you?
Yeah, you can. Yes.
Like chess, for example. I went to see that the other day because my special friend Tim Rice.
Oh, right.
I go and see his
Oh,
shows.
do you?
And yeah,
Right,
it's great.
right.
He's my number one famous fan.
Oh, is he?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
So, do you think, please God, please say yes, that there was going to be a backlash to all this diversity, this gender neutral casting nonsense? Because aren't the audiences getting a bit pissed off with this stuff?
I'm not sure that they are actually. I think they might be going along with it. And I think one of the difficulties is that an artistic director of a theatre needs to have a reason to put a play on. And it's very easy for a director to say, right, we're going to do it in this particular way. If a director comes along and says, well, we're going to do it in tights and tunics and everyone playing the correct gender and it's going to be set in the correct historical era, that sounds rather bland. And of course the artistic director wants to impress other artistic directors with his daring and his sense of adventure and novelty.
It's a bit like public school headmasters. There are almost no, or private schools as Americans might call them, no sound public school headmasters anymore because they're all eager to show how forward-looking they are and how against all the hidebound traditions that have hitherto held schools like Eton and Rugby and Harrow back, and they want to show that they're taking their boys and girls into the future. And in the same way, I suppose it's impossible. You probably can't get the gig in the first place, can you, as an artistic director, unless you pay lip service to all these right-on shibboleths?
Yes, I expect so. But of course, there's always a little bit of corruption going in at the same time. I mean, you're talking about the RSC, which is run by Gregory Doran, who's very keen on diversity and casting in order to, as it were, to spread the net as wide as possible. But of course, his husband is Sir Anthony Sher, and he always gets the best parts. And there's a woman has just taken over control of the Globe, Michelle Terry, and her first production was Hamlet, starring herself as Hamlet. Her next production is Macbeth, starring herself as Lady Macbeth, and her husband, Paul Reedy, as Macbeth. So she's actually practicing nepotism.
Yes, I don't mind Gregory Doran promoting his husband when he is Anthony Sher, because Anthony Sher is not a bad actor.
Yeah, he's a good actor. Yes.
What does bother me, another thing about RSC Productions, I'm only focusing on the RSC because I live near there, but I'm sure that other national companies are equally rubbish and equally PC, like the National and stuff, is there's always a gulf between those of the actors who can speak a diverse, who can speak in iambic pentameters and make sense of them, and those who just might as well have wandered in from a second-rate school production.
Yeah, there is always that problem, yes. I mean, I found that difficulty with when Lenny Henry played Othello in the West End. I must have been the only person who I was under the apprehension that he didn't really understand what the language meant. You know, it was a dreadful performance. It was so bad, it reminded me what bad acting is. You don't often see bad acting, but one symptom of bad acting is that a bad actor can't remain silent. Can't remain still. Stillness is a quality prized by directors. The ability, when other people are acting, to do nothing convincingly, and he couldn't do it.
What was he doing?
He was moving his eyes around all over the place, trying to mug, trying to get a laugh, trying to get attention. Just really bad hyperactivity.
Yes.
And of course he won an award for his brilliant Othello. I thought it was dreadful, and his Iago was dreadful too.
Yes. Sorry. Lenny Henry was Othello.
Yeah. Lenny Henry was Othello, yes.
Rather than modishly Iago, because that would have been quite interesting casting. But Yeah, one of the main characteristics about Othello is the beauty of his language. That's what wins over Desdemona.
Yes.
I saw Othello's visage in his mind, something like that. She said. So he's meant to be really good at the verse speaking, and if he can't speak the verse, then I'm sorry, he may be the right colour. He may be famous as a comedian who was on Tiswas once.
Yeah.
But I imagine that most of the audience were just going, tongues hanging out, it's Lenny Henry off the TV, and he's BAME, whatever the modish phrase is.
Yes, no doubt that was it, and he was sort of trying to get some laughs in there, I think, at some point. But it was
because Othello's got many laughs.
It's a big.
So he was
big
milking
comedy.
it for that. Yeah. Got it. Well, this is awful.
I know. Yes.
How do you not want to top yourself half the evenings when you come back from the theatre?
Oh well, I mean, I often do, but I'm used to it. I'm used to sort of the sensation of surrendering my evening to to the greater good.
Is there not? Sorry, I'm going to try and persuade you that maybe there is going to be a backlash. Is it not still the case that people that fuddy-duddies like Rattigan are actually more popular than modish ones like
yes, that's
Pinter?
true. Yes, certainly in Amdram. I mean, there's a huge gap between the sort of Amdram plays you get where people are just doing it for the sheer love of it, where Rattigan and Coward are very popular, and Pinter is not popular at all. Still less Ionesco or Beckett. You don't see them being played in the village hall by a group of amateur players who are just doing it for the love of it. You just don't see that.
Do you like Pinter?
I like some of it. I like his funny stuff. When he's being funny, he's excellent. And I've just been to see the latest in the Pinter Festival. I mean, they're trying to create a kind of religious aura about him now.
Yeah.
By playing his plays at a theatre named after him. And what I noticed that he's a very funny sketch writer, but he can't end a sketch. He can't find a tag, as they call it. And that's the same problem is true of his longer plays as well. He doesn't really know how to end them, and he'll sort of wriggle out of it by giving a few of the characters sort of rather enigmatic speeches for about 5 minutes at the end. But he really can't wrap a play up properly, which is a shame.
I must tell you my Harold Pinter story. When I was younger, I was a diarist for various newspapers, and I used to have to go to first nights often, and I went to some this was in the days before mobile telephones, and when you had to dictate your copy over the phone to a copy taker for the overnight edition. And I can't remember what event it was, but anyway, it was a black tie event, and I saw this chap, and I thought, well, he must be a chap in black tie. He must be. It was a posh hotel. He must be one of the people who works at the hotel. I said, excuse me, can you tell me where the nearest phone is? And he looked at me and he said, I haven't a fucking clue where the nearest phone is. And I realised at that moment that it was the great man himself.
Right.
So I've been told almost to fuck off by Harold Pinter.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I bet you haven't. Have you?
No, I haven't. No, I know. I'm afraid I walked past him, but I never met him.
You never yeah. Okay. You're listening to the Delingpole podcast with me, James Delingpole, and my very special guest, Lloyd Evans.
Breitbart News Tonight with Joel Pollack and Rebecca Mansour.
The real thing that the left is angry about is they're like, how could you allow these Russian memes? Somebody saw a meme and then they decided they had to vote for Trump. Or it must have been fake news. And by fake news, they mean conservative websites. Come on. But this is what the left thinks. Fake news. And by fake news, what they mean is shut down Breitbart.
Breitbart News Tonight. Weeknights starting at 9 p.m. East on Sirius XM Patriot 125. This is Delingpole, a Breitbart.com podcast. Here once again is James Delingpole.
Welcome back to the Delingpole podcast with me, James Delingpole, and my very special guest, Lloyd Evans. Lloyd, fat.
Yes.
Tell me about fat.
Fat. Well, there was a controversy in this summer which blew up in the critical circle. A critic called Philip Fisher mentioned that a character played by an actress called Nicola Coughlan was fat. This is in a production at the Donmar Warehouse. And Nicola Coughlan got very angry about this and complained and demanded an apology and demanded that the words be removed from the website of British Theatre Guide. And she said that the critic must not review my body, he must review my performance. And the critic got very... he delivered the apology, but then there was a kind of a Twitter storm, and he got issued with death threats, and he began to find it difficult to sleep. He began to lose weight, paradoxically. And it was a really unpleasant business for him. Horrible. And he thought that she had misrepresented his words in order to grab publicity. And so they both felt very aggrieved by it all. She felt that the apology was insincere, and he felt that she had been manipulating him. But I think that she had really surrendered when she accepted that fat is an insult. Why is fat an insult? It is normal to enjoy eating. It's healthy and natural to prefer eating to taking exercise. I mean, if anything's unnatural, it's jogging, isn't it? And so
doesn't Shakespeare have something to say about that? Let me have men about me
that are fat and such asleep at nights. Yes, that's
yeah.
right. He does. Yes, Jon Casca has a lean and hungry look.
Yeah. So back in the day,
yes, it was
fatness
good.
Was a desirable attribute.
Absolutely, it has been. We're living in very abnormal times where people go jogging, and you look at their faces and see how much they're enjoying it. And even the state bullies us into losing weight, and doctors bully us and put us on drugs and tell us we've got diabetes. It's a completely invented malady. Type 2 diabetes is anyway. And even in schools, teachers weigh the children. It must be humiliating for these kids to be lined up, because everyone can see as the kids are standing in line who's a little bit tubby, and then they send a letter home to the parents saying, fatso is causing earth tremors. Put him on a diet. This is bullying. It's really unpleasant. And also, there's this myth that it's costing the NHS a fortune, as if somehow people are kind of eating themselves to death. Well, that's simply not happening.
No. A, it's a sign of an abundant society that's thriving, and B, it's actually not true anyway. The obesity epidemic is way overdone.
Yeah, it's overstated.
Chris Snowden's very, very good on this, and C, of course, it's people. If they took more exercise, they wouldn't have this problem. It's not because evil companies are forcing sugar on innocent victims and they should be banned.
No, it's freedom of choice. Freedom of choice. Yes, absolutely.
By the way, was the actress fat?
She's a little plump, but she's very attractive, and I think she was.
So you would?
Yeah, definitely.
well, there you are.
Yes.
He should have said she's fat. But brackets, I would.
Yeah, yes.
I still would.
Yeah, the thing is, a lot of actors get involved in causes. Patrick Stewart is always getting involved in a cause. It's because they fear obscurity, they fear being forgotten, and they want their faces to be on telly, because you never know when the producer or the casting director is going to be watching. And so when actors support causes, don't forget the cause is supporting the actor, not the other way around.
That's interesting, because what's his name from The Wire? What's the actor called?
Yes.
Dominic West.
Yes.
Gave a very interesting interview to the Spectator, in which the journalist challenged him on his championing of these tiresome causes. He said, "Why can't you just get on with acting? Why are you alienating half your audience? Because do you realise that there are some people out there who don't believe in this political stuff, and you are making life difficult for us to have to endure you as an actor, when all we can think about is, why is he talking about this stupid rubbish when he's off stage?"
That's true, yes.
And he conceded that point.
Yeah,
he actually said, well, maybe I should.
Yeah, it was a very good piece. It was Melissa Kite.
Kite.
Yes.
It was a very good interview.
Yeah, and she's absolutely right. She said, look, an actor is there to provide us with escapism. We don't want to know which worthy cause you happen to support. And actually, a lot of actors are. Some actors are more careful about.
Frankly, I didn't really need to know that Gandalf is gay.
Yeah,
I'd rather not know about Gandalf's.
Yes, I know
it
doesn't greatly matter.
No.
I think he was. He first came out. It was quite a big event. I think. This would have been more than 20 years ago. I think, when John Major was in office, and he was welcomed into Downing Street, and that was regarded as a big moment for some reason.
Yeah.
You've got to remember that things were very different 20 years ago.
I don't want to ruin the usual suspects for you, but Kevin Spacey.
I know.
He's not.
So
straight.
I hear.
You heard. Okay.
Yeah. But let's not. We don't want that rumor to be spread too far away.
No. Imagine. It would be like Rock Hudson's career being killed.
I know.
When he. What were we talking about before I got distracted by that?
Oh, we're talking about people being fat.
Oh,
and
yeah,
critics
yeah.
And so on.
Do you find? I know what the answer is going to be, but do you find, as I do, that I feel like I've landed on an alien planet? That this world is not what I recognise. From all the values seem to have disappeared.
Yes, that's true. So things have changed, and you don't know when you look back, you don't know what things were going to change and which things weren't.
No, we thought when we were at university, we all imagined that the world was pretty much going to resemble the world that we knew then.
Yeah. I mean, I think in terms of democracy, it's very interesting because when we were teenagers, democracy was tentative and fragile. There were only a handful of democracies in the world. There was Western Europe, North America, India, Australasia and Japan, but most of Asia, the whole of Africa, Central America were basket cases, third world despotic states, and so for us, democracy is a privilege and it needs to be guarded. Whereas if you're young now, you probably think democracy is normal and is strong and is therefore you can chip away with impunity.
You also think, if you're young, you think democracy is a huge mistake and what you need is a socialistic dictatorship.
Yeah,
of the proletariat.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
Like that's going to work.
Yeah.
But I think the worst thing, and I think you agree with me on this one, is this transgender.
Yes, I know. I this is very new actually, and it's extraordinary that one group is claiming rights at the expense of another vulnerable group, which is very unusual in the history of political protest. But I have a solution for it. First of all, it's obvious that this is a male problem. It's an all-male problem. Trans women are men. They have in your male body, you will have about 35 billion cells, each of which is male, and each of those cells will produce nothing but male cells for as long as you live. Now, some very butch men don't like effeminate men, and so these trans women are being attacked by men, not by women. So the solution really is for men to provide security guards in men's changing rooms. And there should be 2 security guards in every man's loo, every man's changing room. One will wear ordinary men's clothes, another will wear a dress. And they are to impose a strict rule of no transgender bullying, and they aren't allowed to bully each other either. And I think men should pay for this in order to protect women from trans women, because trans women are men, and we shouldn't ask women to chaperone men.
Right, that sounds a very complicated solution. I can't help thinking, again, on the grounds that there's got to be a backlash in the theatre. Maybe I'm just terminally naive, but that this nonsense has almost reached peak stupid, and there must be a retreat at some stage. I was thinking about this actually. I can't remember whether it was because I was thinking about this because I knew I was going to be interviewing you tomorrow, the next day, and you're a playwright and stuff like that. But I was thinking it would make quite a good play or a short story or something, whereby it's on an alien planet, where actually maybe I was I can't remember my plot now.
Right.
But it does seem weird that we're supposedly really advanced, and we look back on previous generations of previous ages as ages of credulousness and weird superstitions and all manner of nonsense, and that now we've evolved into these kind of super beings who we're civilized in every way, and yet isn't it bizarre that the people who are at the top of the cultural feeding chain are men who've decided not to be men anymore, and that the uber supreme culturally dominant figures are the men who've gone all the way and chopped off their bits, chopped off the very symbol of the power that has dominated society since forever.
Yes.
I mean, isn't that weird that we've rejected however many tens of thousands of years of human presence on the planet, and just now we're in that tiny fraction of history where the men without their willies and their balls are the kind of these hermaphrodite emperor kings of our world.
Activists, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How weird is that?
Well, it's very, very strange. And I mean, I've noticed that across the whole spectrum of activism, there is a kind of envy of the 20th century, especially the two great moments of activism in the 20th century. The Weimar Republic and the Black Panther movement, the Black Power movement in the States, and that's why every victim now wants to be a survivor, as if they've got through the Holocaust, they got through Hiroshima, and people, the trans activists, are very envious of the Black Power movement.
Why is that?
Why is that? Because they see it as a justification for civil disobedience and for taking to the streets and for silencing violently silencing their opponents and calling them Nazis and things like that. And that's why they want to create this myth of an epidemic of suicide. They say that over 40% of trans women have attempted suicide. Right. If you then say to them, well, actually attempting suicide is a symptom of mental illness, do you think you're actually suffering from a mental illness? They go completely nuts. But you can't reconcile.
Well, they do, because they're mentally ill.
But I mean, virtually
by definition,
by their own admission. But if you point out that there's a contradiction, or that you can't reconcile that statistic with that diagnosis, then they say that you're a Nazi and you're trying to kill them or something.
I had to do a TV program once on the BBC with one of the more prominent trans activists, and I thought this person is a very attractive. It appealed to my kind of homosexual side. I thought, this is a very pretty boy that I'd probably have sex with in a gay moment, and he's wearing a dress.
Was this on Newsnight when you?
Yeah, that's right.
And you actually started flirting with the.
Yes.
Well, he's a very good-looking woman, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, exactly. He's good-looking, whatever he is.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. I don't mind people experimenting with their gender identity in a kind of Weimar-y kind of way. Mm-hmm. It's slightly sort of pervy and weird and sort of interesting. But it's when they start telling us what kind of toilets we can use and the kind of people that our daughters have to share changing rooms with. That's when I start worrying about it.
Yeah.
And also the type of pronouns we can use.
Yeah.
It's fascistic, isn't it?
It is, yeah. They want to police our thoughts and police the way we express ourselves. And, I mean, this business of self-ID, the idea that any man can say, well, I identify as a woman, so I claim a right to a changing room. Obviously, this threatens women because if it doesn't, you're assuming that men who are violent towards women are also the soul of honour and would never perpetrate a falsehood in order to gain access to their victims. But of course they would.
Yes.
And we're getting close to a situation with self-ID where you could have a women's rape crisis hostel with 2 women on the desk and 3 women taking refuge in the bedrooms, and then 6 beery lads can turn up and say we're women and demand a room for the night, and legally those women will be unable to reject them.
That is where it's going. Although I wonder that's right. The insight I had last night was, in a way, I think that the transgenderism thing was secretly caused by third wave feminism. That feminism, in its most aggressive modern form, became this culturally dominant form to which everyone else had to surrender, and the only option men had to reclaim their power was by redesignating themselves women in order to create this special group that.
Yes, that's right, and that's the claim that the third wave feminists make. They say they're being colonised. Their movement is being colonised, and their spaces are being colonised. So they regard it as a repeat of imperialism. Really.
Yeah, that's one thing I never thought would happen in my lifetime. That I would find myself an ally of
the green and common type feminists.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that Germaine Greer would become a semi ally?
Yes, I know. I mean, she's interested. She said it 20 years ago. She said these are not women. These are mutilated men.
But or Camille Pallier, who I so want to get on the podcast.
Yeah, she'd be great. She'd be mighty.
Yes. I mean, even better than you, Lloyd. That's how good she'd be.
Have you had Germaine on?
No, I haven't. No.
You'd probably like. I met her once. She's unbelievably argumentative. I mean, I love argumentative women, but I mean, she absolutely took the biscuit.
Yes. She reminds me in that respect of my trickiest podcast guest, Peter Hitchens.
Oh right.
Who I'm very fond of, but if you say something to him on which he agrees totally, he'll disagree with you just because he's Peter Hitchens and he feels it's his job to disagree with you on anything. And he's got this collection of fanboys, the people who like, you know, the Hitch Mark II. They really love everything he does. Yeah. And they saw this as the podcast that we did together was a kind of Hitch one. You know, he put you in your place. Yeah. No, Hitch was was needlessly difficult, and all I wanted to do was get the best out of him and get on. And that's the whole point of these podcasts. I'm not in the business of trying to catch people out and make them sound bad. It's a conversation between civilized people. Yeah. Well, maybe he's not capable of that. Well, I'm going to have him back on because he's interesting. Right. But it's a different experience. Before we go and have an Italian lunch, obviously no meat in my case because I'm a vegan. No meat. Lol. Plenty of wine though. Yeah. Well, no, I can't. I'm not even allowed to drink wine. You're not allowed to. Who is it who's not allowing you? When I went to Germany to have my stem cell therapy, I got my diet was put in the care of their resident dietitian, who is a bloody vegan, so she's a bit biased. Right. And she said, you must go on a vegan diet, and you must not have any sugar, any alcohol, any canned foods. Rubbish German accent. Any. This sounds like quite an erotic encounter. No, this was by email. I didn't. By email. I did have erotic encounters. Semi-erotic counselling with the German nurses. Right, yes. There is no one I would rather have put a cannula in my vein than a German. Did they have blonde plaits? No, none of them did actually. No, that would have been too much. That would have been too much. Yeah. And dirndl skirts. Yeah, no, they didn't. They didn't go that far, but they were pretty German and pretty nursey. Yeah. So it was pretty good. So apparently, my stem cells that I've been given to help cure my Lyme disease, they like an alkaline anti-oxidant, is that the word? Yeah, environment. So supposedly meat and animal fats generally have acid in them. So they're trying to keep my body alkaline so that my stem cells will kind of magically cure me and make me a kind of Ubermensch, which is what I'm, on the way to becoming. Yes, of course. Thanks to these stem cells. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. And it's good. Have we put the world to rights? I think we have. Yes. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we? Well, this evening, I'm in my other career. I'm a playwright, and I'm trying to get some money, get some backing for a play to take to Edinburgh next year. Yeah. It's a monologue spoken by Cherie Blair. I want to corner the market in the Cherie brand, which hasn't been seen on stage yet. So you're going to get sort of a gobby scouser with a huge mouth. Well, I've got an actress who's from Cumbria, actually, and she looks very like Cherie did about 15 years ago, and she's perfect. And so we're all set to go. And I'm going to go to this Balliol reunion called the Balliol Entrepreneurs. And you can meet people there who have literally made hundreds of millions of pounds in the sort of 30 years since we were there. So for them, a small investment of 10,000 will be loose change. Yeah, no, exactly. Well, we'll get that. So tell me a bit about this model. It sounds good. Oh, about Cherie. Yeah. Well, it's the thing is that she's the most talented and remarkable prime ministerial consort there has ever been. I mean, if you compare her with, say, Norma Major or Mary Wilson, these are not singular people. But she came from. Mary Wilson was a poet. She was a poet. Yes, she was. She wrote nice decorative poems. Right. Okay. Cherie came from an obscure convent on the outskirts of Liverpool to the centre of politics in Downing Street. She was unbelievably ambitious and clever, and very political. She was a member of the Labour Party from the age of 16. Tony Blair didn't join the Labour Party until he was about 22. And she was much more political than he was. She was the Lady Macbeth of she was, Blair. Yes. Well, that was the way people would attack him, by attacking her, and that really hasn't stopped. She's still immensely unpopular. Yeah, but deservedly so. I'm sorry. She was responsible, I'd say, even more than the evil Blair, for turning Britain into a lawyer-ocracy, and particularly the rise of human rights law. Yeah. Yes, which didn't exist at the taxpayer's expense. Yeah, Matrix Chambers. No, I'm not. You're being too gallant there. I think she was a pain. Right. Okay. What would be who was the most evil Roman woman? The most evil Roman woman. Well, according to Claudius, it was Augustus's wife. Was she Livia? Okay, so she's Livia then.
Yeah.
She's Livia Soprano, Livia Claudius. Yeah.
This is the way she was perceived. Yeah, Lady Macbeth.
Okay,
and the first person to call her Lady Macbeth, was none other than John Burko. A rather sexist comment, which I'm sure he would now try to disclaim.
Yeah, I bet he would. Yeah. So, is your monologue a rehabilitation?
It is, because I want to get people who simply want to find out the unpleasant side of Cherie. But there's a lot to her, and there are a lot of myths that need to be corrected, I think. And there's an interesting gossip. Alistair Campbell, Tony Blair's right-hand man, was once a pornographer who used the nom de plume Riviera Gigolo. So there are interesting little facts. Yes, yes. He wrote for Penthouse when he was in his early 20s, I think.
Right. Would I imagine journalism paid?
It probably did. Yes. Yeah. In those days.
Have you read any of his porn?
It's not top of mind reading list, but maybe next summer. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's a good way to end. Alistair Campbell, pornographer.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Delingpole podcast with me, James Delingpole, and my very special, wonderful guest, theatre critic, playwright, Welshman, Lloyd Evans. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks very much, James.
Okay, bye.
Sonny's Corner with Sonny Johnson.
Everything in hip-hop is not bad. Kanye agreed with us, so let's love him today until he raps tomorrow and you turn your back. Because if you jump off when the fun of the moment is over, then you are in fact making Kanye the token he is accused of being. So please, don't do that. Don't go there.
Sonny's Corner with Sonny Johnson. Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. East on Sirius XM Patriot 125.